In this episode of Trekking Through Compliance, we look at the episode The Way to Eden.
Compliance, the final frontier. Tom Fox is the voyager of Trekking Through Compliance. His mission? To explore the original series and seek out and share what it can teach you about compliance. Here's your host, Tom Fox.
In this episode of Trekking Through Compliance, we consider the episode The Way to Eden, which aired on February 21, 1969, and occurred on stardate 5832.3. Story synopsis. The Enterprise destroys the stolen space cruiser Aurora when it uses its tractor beam to prevent it from entering Romulan space, and the Aurora continues to use full power in an attempt to flee. The 6 passengers are beamed aboard the Enterprise before their ship's destruction and prove to be Tongo Rad, the son of a Catulan ambassador, Irini Galian, Mr. Chekhov's former girlfriend at a Starfleet Academy dropout, Dr. Sevrin, a well-known researcher in the fields of acoustics, communications, and electronics from Tiburon, and the musician Adam, and 2 unidentified women. The group is dressed in far-out clothing, is disrespectful of authority, and calls Kirk Herbert. The hippies demand to be taken to a planet called Eden and refuse to cooperate with Kirk. However, Spock seems partially to understand them when he makes a symbol and speaks of the One. As a result, the hippies allow Spock to lead them to sickbay. Medical examination of Sevrin reveals him to be a carrier of the Synthecoccus novae virus and to be on the verge of insanity. Kirk orders Sevrin into isolation, and before he can endanger any crew members who may not have received the simplest and complete vaccinations. The hippies object by calling Kirk Herbert again and making up a protest song. Spock attempts to reason with Sevrin and offers to assist him in finding Eden and colonizing it if he agrees to cooperate. However, Sevrin is so resentful of the impositions placed on him as a carrier of the disease that he is oblivious to the damage he can impose on others and wants only to be free of the illness. Led by Sevrin, the hippies take control of the Enterprise by distracting crew members. Adam distracts Spock with music and arranges to hold a concert, which is broadcast ship-wide, in which Spock joins in. Irini distracts Chekhov with love and finds out how to access the computer banks and navigate the ship. Finally, Tongo distracts Sulu with his hobby of botany. Tongo then knocks out Severin's guard and frees Sevrin, and the 2 of them knock out Chekhov and take over the ship from auxiliary control and direct it towards Romulan space. The hippies then complete Spock's search and find the planet they call Eden, which lies in the Romulan sector. The hippies use hypersonics to incapacitate the Enterprise crew and then proceed onto the planet using the Galileo 2 shuttlecraft. Kirk manages to reach auxiliary control and stop the sound. Spock, Kirk, Chekhov, and McCoy then follow the hippies down using the transporter. They find a beautiful planet, but they quickly learn otherwise when Chekhov's hands are burned when he touches a flower, and McCoy determines that all plant life on the planet contains acid. The landing party discovers that Adam has been killed after eating an appetizing-looking apple, but it's really deadly indigenous food. Sevrin refuses to leave and then deliberately eats food which kills him. The landing party takes the remainder of the hippies whose bare feet have been burnt back to the Enterprise for medical attention. So what is the fun fact? Well, obviously this is the hippie episode. I wonder if future generations will watch it and take it as the gospel truth for hippies. And a comment from Katie N. on missionlogpodcast.com was, I actually liked this episode quite a lot. I thought it was compelling and had some interesting questions to ponder. I think you can also say the message is actions matter more than words and the hypocrisy of moral leadership. For all the hippie ideology this group is spouting, they use violence, they steal, they lie, and they use emotional manipulation. They can go on and on about peace and brotherhood, but that's really just for their own ends and willing to step on anyone who gets in their way. That's why Eden is poisoned. Corruption means only achieve corrupt ends. Once again, we have some interesting continuity issues from this episode. It is the first mention of Chekhov's middle name. Galuin greets him as Pavel Andreevich. Spock's desire to find Eden is further explained in Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. Although it's unlikely the stories were intended to be linked, Star Trek V closely parallels some of this episode's plot points. Nichelle Nichols as Uhura does not appear in this episode. Lieutenant Palmer, who fills in for her, makes her second and final TOS appearance after the Doomsday Machine from the second episode. Skip Homeier also starred in Patterns of Force, he as Melicon in that episode. And Charles Napier, who wrote two of the songs he sings in this episode, including Heading Out to Eden and Looking for a New Land, also appeared as Denning in the Star Trek Deep Space Nine fourth season episode, Little Green Men. That Little Green Men is a ton of fun, and if you're into DS9, I'm sure you're aware of it, but check it out. Once again, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this episode, so please leave us a comment or two in the comment section of this podcast. So what are some of the compliance lessons from The Way to Eden? Well, I think there's quite a lot for the compliance professional to think about from this episode. Number one, the illusion of utopia. Starting with unforeseen consequences, this episode highlights how even the most well-intentioned utopian visions can have unintended consequences. The children of Eden's request for a more perfect society leads to isolation, manipulation, and ultimately conflict. Compliance blind spots. Compliance professionals should be aware of the potential blind spots in utopia or idealistic visions. We must be cautious about accepting claims at face value and must always consider the potential risks or unintended consequence. The importance of critical thinking, as this episode underscores the need for critical thinking, skepticism in evaluating claims of perfection or even utopia. Compliance professionals must question assumptions, challenge narratives, and consider alternative perspectives. Or as Jonathan Marks would say, use your professional skepticism. Number two, the power of influence, manipulation and coercion. This episode highlights how individuals can be manipulated and coerced into accepting a particular ideology, even if it goes against their own values and beliefs. Compliance culture. Compliance professionals must be vigilant in identifying strong and mitigating potential manipulation or coercion within their organization. A strong compliance culture that emphasizes ethical behavior and open communication can help prevent such issues. What about the role of leadership? Well, this episode highlights the importance of strong leadership in guiding individuals towards ethical decision-making and preventing manipulation. 3, the importance of adaptability. What about evolving or changing risk? Well, this episode shows how risk can evolve and change over time. This is something the Department of Justice has talked to us about literally since the pandemic. What may seem like a safe and ethical decision at one point can become problematic as circumstances change. Simply think about working from home, return to work, and hybrid work. They all have different risks that you have to evaluate from the compliance perspective. Dynamic compliance. Compliance programs must be dynamic and adaptable to address these evolving risks and challenges. Regular review and evaluation of compliance programs are crucial to ensure they remain effective, but something close to a continuous risk assessment must also be in place. Flexibility and innovation. Compliance professionals must be flexible and innovative in their approach to addressing ethical challenges, adapting to new situations and developing creative solutions. Number 4, the value of diversity. Multiple perspectives. This episode demonstrates the importance of considering multiple perspectives and avoiding groupthink. The children of Eden's utopian vision is ultimately flawed because it lacks diversity and fails to take into account the complexity of human nature. It also requires inclusive compliance, as compliance programs should be inclusive and encourage diverse perspectives. This can help identify potential risks and blind spots that might be missed by a single perspective. The Way to Eden serves as a reminder that compliance professionals must always be vigilant in evaluating potential risks and opportunities, considering the complexities of human nature and adapting to changing circumstances. By embracing critical thinking, ethical decision-making, and a commitment to inclusivity, compliance professionals can navigate the challenges of a complex and ever-changing world. Thanks so much for listening to this episode, and I hope you'll join us for our next episode where we take up one of my personal favorites, the cloud miners.
If you enjoyed this episode of Trekking Through Compliance, you can help it grow by sharing it with the biggest Trek fan you know.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.